Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV 18, The Thought League Season 3, A Glorious Decade, A Century of Service.
Geopolitics is shifting, geoeconomics is evolving, and the middle of all of it, India is striving to assert its place in a rapidly transforming global order. How is India navigating global uncertainties on trade, technology, and policy? What does this mean for our regulatory landscape, economic priorities, and legal frameworks? On this episode of the Thought League Season 3, we decode India's global game plan with two powerhouses of insight. Dr. Janmejaya Sinha is Chairman India at Boston Consulting Group. Cyril Shroff is Managing Partner, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. Gentlemen, great to have both of you here for what I hope will be a fascinating and very, very insightful discussion. Dr. Sinha, if I can start with you, sir, first. You know, given all of the changes which have come about in short order, actually, in the last, since, late last year, when President Trump took over, and a lot has happened since, at a fairly fast speed, how do you see India navigating all these changes so far?
So, as we start decoding what's going on, it's useful to just imagine as a thought experiment that we are in 1st July 2024, 1 year ago, not right now. 1 year ago, the global order was quite interesting. US used to import $4.1 trillion and it had a trade deficit current account of $1.2 trillion. On the capital account, $62 trillion used to go into the US and the US used to invest $35 trillion outside. So it had a deficit on the capital account of about $27 trillion. But because of low interest rates, its high credit rating, the dollar being the reserve currency, everyone investing in US, it used to earn more on its $35 trillion outside than on the $62 trillion that it had. This used to create a lot of advantage for the US, but not for all sectors. So the financial institutions loved it because, if $62 trillion is there, firstly, interest rates tend to come down and you are involved in a lot of intermediation. The second group that really loved it was risk capital. There was a lot of money to invest because interest rates were low. So if you just look, the top 6 stocks in the US have a market capitalization of above $17 trillion, more than Canada, UK, Germany, France combined. This was because of the amount of money that was there. And the American MNCs over the last 25 years have done very well. And if you look at their EBITDA and you look at their margins, they've all gone up because they started offshoring manufacturing to cheaper wage locations, most importantly to China. 25% of manufacturing went away to China from the US. And China offered a plentiful labor at low cost and very disciplined in dormitories, 12-hour shifts, and then gave incentives, land and other incentives for this offshoring to happen. As a result of this, the US economy has done very well. At the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, US and EU were about the same size. Now the US is about 60% bigger. The US is about $27 trillion or $28 trillion, and EU is about $18 trillion. So it's really done well. But Main Street and others in the US did not see their incomes rise at the same level. They were doing well, but they felt others were doing better. And there was a general lack of satisfaction and in some places a lot of discontent because jobs had gone away. And this was the political movement that President Trump created. Make America Great Again was a movement for the people on Main Street who felt they were being left behind. And he said to them that, you are being left behind because the elites are winning. These American universities are serving the elites. Immigrants are winning. We are allowing too many immigrants to come in. Some of them are taking your jobs. And all our jobs are being shifted away. We have to actually fix this. So we will put in tariffs. We will cut taxes to make your life easier. We will give you cheaper oil. And we will throw the immigrants out. This was the compelling story he created, and then he won. So this was the background. And in this, now, the fact that manufacturing, that, in the last 25 years, and especially now, China is 38% of global manufacturing, 18% of global GDP, and 12 or 13% of global consumption. So, in a very interesting manner, it is like the Industrial Revolution. Labor is being released from agriculture at cheap prices. It is doing better, but it is still consuming less. So, there is a hidden 5-6% implicit subsidy, which you can't do much about because wages are low. It's not like it's a subsidy, but it's just that wages are low. Now they have started rising. But this was the issue that Trump wanted to address. Now, in and of itself, some of this was fine. But the fact is that the US ran a fiscal deficit of over 6%. It used to spend $7 trillion and get $5 trillion. So there was a lot which was going on. And in this, he thought he can threaten people with tariffs. And then manufacturing will start coming back. The problem that he was addressing had some merit in it. The tools he has used and the way he has used these tools, changing his mind every day, threatening, shaking down his allies, etc., has made everyone now not trust the US. The US has become undependable and just saying, okay, it's very powerful. It is a very big importer. How do we manage and get the best for ourselves? The people who really gave US a hard time was China, because they had been building up, they had a control on critical minerals, which they stopped exporting. And the US had to come to the table, not China. Of course, China exports $430 billion to US and runs a $300 billion surplus, 295 or something like that. But yet, it said, we are playing the long game and we will win. Now, the US had to make peace with China, but it's trying to shake down. But the way it is being doing it, it is not clear how this will play out. So every country now is on its own. Alliances, partnerships, etc. are not there. The only truth now is interest. And everyone has to see their interest in an agile manner. That is what India also has to do. Yeah, there have been announcements yesterday by Trump on the tariffs on India, just before 25th August. So it's a shakedown period. Let's see how it plays out. We'll have to play it by ear, so to speak. We have to be prepared. We have to understand what we are giving up and what we are getting. And we have to see the costs of what we are facing.
Mr. Shroff, so from a business point of view, right, some sectors will pay higher tariffs, others perhaps not too much export. So everybody is going to be impacted in a different way. But apart from just that, the tariff part, what are some of the legal, regulatory implications of what we are seeing? In a way, industrial policy has made a big comeback, right? You got US actually really championing it now.
Yes. So I'll just add a few more comments to what Janmejaya said, and I'll then sort of answer your question more directly. So just coming back to geopolitics. So, I mean, as you zoom out and look at it, it's what we thought when the Berlin Wall fell was we thought it was the end of history. But what we're seeing in the last few years is actually the big time return of geopolitics. And the entire post-World War II order has changed. We are seeing conflicts, Ukraine, Gaza, you name it. There's just so much going on. And as we've been watching, I think the wars are also very different because it's not the old model of older people sending younger people to die in the fields. But I think it's now about more drones and, where unarmed conflict has become probably a bigger a bigger part of the game as well, which changes the dynamic quite considerably. We also saw the pandemic with both global cooperation as well as global isolation, both playing out at the same time. And what we've seen again, look at the Middle East. I think Israel has become the superpower of the Middle East by a long shot. So what we are seeing is what I think the economists called a perma-VUCA-lution, kind of a combined acronym which they created to just describe a state of a permanent VUCA world in the middle of a revolution that's taking. And we see that every day. Every day, as you open the newspaper, there's something new. And this has cast a long shadow on business and economy. Speaking of America, I'm reminded of what Henry Kissinger said of, America is a very dangerous enemy, but as a friend, it's fatal. And we are seeing that playing out with us as well. We got slapped not only with 25%, which is higher than for some of the other so-called friends, but we also got punished for our dealings with Russia. So it's quite confusing, and we're seeing a number of secondary implications. For example, flights. I mean, a flight to the US now takes 17 or 17 and a half hours instead of 14. We are seeing so many disruptions to global supply chains. The risk during when the Iran episode was hot on the Hormuz Strait being blocked was quite significant. On a very business note, we are seeing things like Rest Note 3 or CFIUS. So there's a completely new toolkit that is being used, and that takes me to what you call geo-legal risk. What is geo-legal risk? Geo-legal risks is, I mean, we've been attempting a definition, but it is basically politics and global politics manifesting itself through the legal vector to create harm or opportunity. And we are seeing that happen everywhere, whether it's tariffs, whether it's restrictions like West Note 3 or CFIUS, or somebody deciding that no, Apple cannot produce in India, engineers being pulled out and sent back to China. All these are legal risks, and what it requires is a very watchful approach to watch these trends. And as Janmejaya said, I think we need to be extremely agile about this. So this is a movie that has just started, I think, and we are watching it play out live. And it's almost like an action movie where there is a lot of action in every scene, and you have to keep extremely vigilant about it. Both policymakers, and you literally have to keep yourself on your toes to respond to things coming from different directions. And as I think there was an interesting article in the Financial Times, I think, on how is the world getting used to almost like a G-1. Is that even a form of existence that the world is used to, and they're discovering it.
Very useful perspective once again. What we'll do is we'll take a quick commercial break here. We'll come back, continue this discussion, and we'll actually get into what should we do in terms of how India should navigate, and I'll sort of come back with that in just a bit. Stay with us.
Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV 18, The Thought League Season 3, A Glorious Decade, A Century of Service.
Welcome back to Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV 18, The Thought League Season 3. We're in conversation with Mr. Cyril Shroff and Dr. Janmejaya Sinha. Dr. Sinha, if I can come to you, you described how we sort of got to where we are in this moment, but now what should we do? Because lately, we are starting to see a softening of stand towards China, which I think Mr. Shroff also alluded to. I'm not sure how much of this slight pivot is based off, some of the cold shoulder we seem to be getting for now with President Trump. So how should one how should we play it from here for the long term? Go on.
So a few things, but firstly, I don't believe China, there was any concession by the US. China forced what it got. It did not get it because of the goodwill of the US. The US discovered that the Chinese were prepared for them. They tightened the screws where it hurt. They did not give them critical minerals. They said, if you don't give me semiconductors, I will not give you critical minerals. They also discovered that the Chinese had moved up the value chain. Now, if you look at it, in the top 20 universities, you'll find 2 Chinese universities. There weren't 2 in the top 200. That's how quickly they have moved up. DeepSeek may be better than ChatGPT. So they have moved up on technology with defense, with advanced materials. And so they discovered that, this quantum computing, robotics, aircraft, space, that the Chinese have also been preparing. And so when this thing happened, just looking at the trade imbalance, the US thought China would be brought down to the knees. Yes, China will hurt, but China was prepared to hurt America too. So America has then decided, oh my God, we have to play this a bit longer. It's not that easy. And, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who was one of the saner voices there, said, let's make peace right now to get to a stage which they can deal with and which gives us some benefits. Let's get the critical minerals, let's give them the semiconductors, and let's be thoughtful. If they make a play on Taiwan, we will have a problem. So what should we do? We should see there are a lot of deep questions for us. See, now the issue here I find is that the US could do us a big favor by forcing us to reduce tariffs in some places, which has been politically unpalatable for us to do and doesn't have much consequence, makes us more efficient, raises our productivity. We should grudgingly do, and we should compensate those interest groups by giving them money, by reducing the tariff and finding other ways to support them. Because we are a democracy. If you're not in power, you can't even play the game. So every government has to manage the different lobby groups. So the lobby groups that get affected in agriculture, we should compensate in different ways, in hidden ways. We need to be thoughtful and clever about it, and allow the US to help us where we have not been able to help ourselves. What we have to be really alert about is the dumping that may happen from China to us, because the amount of that 430 billion that doesn't go to the US needs to find a different market as China wants to continue to increase its manufacturing.
Mr. Shroff, you want to come in with your perspective on this?
Yeah, so I think coming to the sort of India's perspective, so our earlier doctrine was non-alignment. I mean, right from the Nehruvian time, and I think that was basically saying that we are nobody's friend. Now we have moved to a kind of a revised doctrine of strategic autonomy. Namely, we will focus on our interests, and we don't want to be in anybody's camp. But Trump has called it out. I think in terms of saying that I'm going to give you a Russia penalty because you deal with them, he's basically saying, in different words of what George Bush said, either you're with us or you're against us. And therefore, he's saying that, no, don't try to be too clever. I mean, this strategic autonomy is fine, and every nation is allowed to keep its interests paramount. But I'm America, I'm Trump, and I think I need to have a slightly different approach to this. So I think this we'll see how it kind of plays out. But I think that our doctrine of the purest version of our doctrine of strategic autonomy is coming a little unstuck. Now, coming to how this is playing out in terms of, how can we play our interests? First and foremost, what is our biggest advantage? I think our biggest advantage is our markets. 1.4 billion people, middle class, with a massive middle class spending authority as well. We have to learn how to play our quote unquote markets card very nicely. It's the kind of the strategic equivalent of the rare earths business. And we may, I think, for all the reasons that we all know, we may be in a 1991 moment in a manner of speaking. And this, the pressure that the US is putting on us, may be an opportunity to become efficient. I think, as Janmay said, okay, let's take the tariff, but let's become more efficient. Let's, use this as a lever for domestic reform as well. And because at the end of the day, I think we might actually benefit from this. So let's not see this only as a punishment, but let's see this as an opportunity to get significantly, I think the 91 reforms, as we know, all happened. It kind of transformed India's economy. We could probably use this global uncertainty and the pressure that US is putting on us to look at our critical, processes and industries and use our, markets card, but also become far more efficient, which I think will have much more long-term benefits. And we can see that we can play this very cleverly in the various trade agreements that we are entering into. I think we did well on the UK one. We've called it, of course, the gold standard. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but it is a agreement that preserves our strategic autonomy well enough. And again, India UK is a very different equation. US, let's see how it's much more complex. And I think what we have seen this morning is tariffs before treaty. I think that could change because Trump may just sign a treaty and then change his mind. What we could also do is use bilateral investment treaties creatively as well, because India is both an importer and an exporter of capital. So I think we are also going to need that. We saw how this plays out also in the Middle East. I think we did a trade agreement in 2022 and a BIT with the UAE in 2024 as well. And that's another very important region that can play out in the larger, chessboard of the world. So in short, zooming out, I think our doctrine, I think, will continue to remain strategic autonomy, but we have to be ready for it to be called out, and we should, like China, play our strategic card well, which I think the biggest thing that we have is the size of our demography as well as our market. They're salivating at our market, and I think we should play that.
Dr. Sinha and Mr. Shroff, I had a bunch of other questions, but on this episode for now, completely out of time, so we'll have to wrap it up. So this will continue to evolve, and India will have to find itself balancing diplomacy, development here, and of course, disruption, which is very much now the name of the game. Thanks, both of you, for joining us with your sharp perspective. Join us next time on the Thought League as we continue to unpack the forces shaping our world.
Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas presents CNBC TV 18, The Thought League Season 3, A Glorious Decade, A Century of Service.